President Trump's demand that individual stimulus checks be increased to $2,000 each now hinges on Senate Republicans. The Democrat-led House passed a bill last night that will give hurting Americans more than triple what Congress agreed on last week. Paula Reid reports.
The bill is passed.
With one hurdle cleared in the House, President Trump and Speaker Pelosi, rarely on the same page, are calling on reluctant Republicans in the Senate to get on board and more than triple the $600 in COVID relief payments to struggling Americans.
Republicans have a choice. Vote for this legislation or vote to deny the American people the bigger paychecks they need.
But passage in the Senate is uncertain, with the $2,000 stimulus checks inflating the total COVID assistance in this round north of $1 trillion. And most of the president's Republican allies have no interest in increasing spending on this. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called on the president to persuade them.
He talked about it. Now she's got to act. People need the money.
The yeas are 322. The nays are 87.
And in a scathing bipartisan rebuke, the House overrode Mr. Trump's veto of a more than $740 billion defense spending bill. The president had objected to several unrelated items, including the fact that lawmakers would not curtail legal protections for social media companies, and the president also opposed the renaming of some military bases honoring Confederate leaders.
This vote is about supporting our troops and defending America. While not perfect, this bill does a good job of advancing both and should be supported.
Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden is accusing the Trump administration of obstructing the transition by intentionally withholding critical information, including matters of national security.
We have encountered roadblocks from the political leadership at the Department of Defense and the Office of Management and Budget. It's nothing short, in my view, of irresponsibility.
And Paula Reid is in West Palm Beach. She's following the president this week. And Paula, those are some pretty strong words from the president-elect, Joe Biden. How has the Department of Defense reacted to his words, and what do we know about the transition efforts overall?
Good morning, Jeff. Well, the Department of Defense insists that its efforts have so far surpassed those of recent administrations, and they vowed to continue scheduling meetings throughout the transition. Now, in terms of the overall transition, it's been bumpy. You have a president, you have many members of this administration who have not accepted the incoming Biden administration as being legitimate. They have not accepted that they lost the presidential election and that there will be a new regime in just a few weeks. That makes it very difficult to coordinate and go through the normal process. So there has been a lot of obstruction, not a lot of communication, but there have been a lot of career officials we've learned who behind the scenes have been back channeling to make sure there are no critical lapses, particularly when it comes to national security or the response to the pandemic.
And so about this vote, it could happen in the Senate as early as today. Do we know if the White House has been lobbying Republican members of the Senate? We know he spent some time this weekend with Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina. So have White House officials, the president himself, have they been twisting arms trying to get the Republican caucus to go along with what the president wants?
Well, as you mentioned, Senator Lindsey Graham was down here. He's really the only meeting that we can confirm the president has had while he was down here in Florida, because they were spotted together on the golf course. We know Senator Lindsey Graham is one of the president's closest allies, and he was able to help negotiate the president into signing this relief bill as is. It was not only a relief bill, it's also a government funding bill. But even though the president had been threatening for days to veto the entire bill if payments to individuals are not tripled, the president reversed himself after talking to the senator and other lawmakers and decided to sign it as is in exchange for some promises that his priorities would be taken up. But, Jeff, those are assurances of process, not of any policies, and it's just unclear what's going to happen today in the Senate. The key player is, as always, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, and he has not signaled what he intends to do.
So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But also, you know, we've talked to Americans. They're clearly waiting for Congress, the White House to get things going here. They're waiting for these checks. And so has the Treasury Department indicated when or how soon these checks could go out after whatever action Congress decides to take?
Well, it's interesting. Last week, when this was passed and it was expected the president would possibly sign it, the Treasury Department said that checks could go out as soon as this week. Now, we've checked in again with the Treasury Department, and they said depending on how quickly this moves through Congress, more money could potentially go out, or those checks could potentially go out this week. But as we know, it's not just one lump or stack of checks that goes out at one time. It tends to be a rolling process. And the last time they did this, earlier this year, there were people who had to wait quite a long time to get this relief. So people should not necessarily expect to open their mailbox on Friday and see a check, but it is a little bit closer, at least some of the relief, than it was earlier this week.
And Americans want relief from the pandemic as well. And according to the CDC, only slightly more than 2 million of the COVID-19 vaccines have been administered so far out of the nearly 11.5 million doses that have been distributed nationwide. Has the White House commented on this discrepancy, and what has the coronavirus task force been working on lately?
No, the White House has not really weighed in on this discrepancy, and they really have done no communicating, no messaging on the pandemic at large, even as we continue to see these unfortunately historic new numbers of infections, and the death rate continues to be well over 300,000. Jeff, as we've seen the president during his time here in Florida, he's just not really been willing to engage with the American public. He has avoided cameras throughout the holiday, even in speaking to the troops. He said he didn't want to invite the news. He even signed that critical COVID relief without cameras, which is unusual. It signals that the president does not want to answer questions, but also he's not communicating directly with the American people about what his administration is doing right now on the pandemic. And the administration has been keeping the task force, aside from Dr. Anthony Fauci, who sort of runs his own public relations campaign. They really just have not been front and center. There's almost no messaging from the White House right now.
And the talk about messaging from the White House, just wondering, has the president weighed in yet on the Nashville investigation?
No, Jeff, it's really surprising. He hasn't even, we're told, the local mayor says that he has not heard from the president at all. The president has not addressed this publicly. It's quite surprising, given if an act like this had happened on Christmas Day in any other administration, you would certainly expect the president, the White House, to be leaning in, to be assuring people, giving people updates that it would be a priority. But that's just not what we've seen here in Florida. The president's only public appearances have been when we've spotted him on the golf course, where he has been seen for 4 of the past 5 days.
All right, Paula Reid from West Palm Beach, thank you very much for that update.